All right. Okay, Sarah, I see her
If you want to,
name, but
yeah, if you want to go and get started, Mark, you can
all
get the
right.
meeting
Yeah,
going.
we'll go ahead. Let's go ahead and say, hello, Sarah, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing fine. I
Good.
see that Mayor Clary is or isn't here. I don't know. Jason.
I'm
And
here.
then there was one more. We'll go ahead. Thank you. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is now 4:31. If there's no objection, we'll just we'll disregard with the previous minutes and we'll catch them at a later date unless you all need to discuss them. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and just wait until the previous minutes till the next meeting. Let's go ahead and start number 2, Jefferson Drive. And then I believe someone wanted to discuss this topic. If there's no objection, we'll go ahead and have the citizen talk to us about it, and then maybe Sarah might have some issues with it as well. If you would, just for the record, identify yourself, and we're certainly glad to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. Jody Dixon. I am at 118 Jefferson Drive. My family and I moved here about 1.5 years ago with our 2 sons that attend Indian Lake and Hendersonville High School. And since we moved here, we have really been very concerned about the traffic and the speed of traffic on our street. We have noticed people definitely not, within the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. And if I had to guess, I would say people are going somewhere in the 40s or 50s and maybe even faster at times. And I know there's been some data collected on that. And I also understand that currently we do not qualify for the federal regulations that allow for any kind of reduction in the speed limit. But I'm really pleading with you all to help us somehow to create this to be a safer environment for our families, for our pets. If you were not aware, there was an accident just last weekend at the corner of Jefferson Drive and Natchez, where the stop sign and street signs were completely bent over. We think that it was a possible DUI. And I did see, as I was walking that morning, I did see alcohol bottles and things around. It's a really scary place to raise your children, to have cars going so fast down the street there and not allow your kids to play, ride their bikes, let pets free. And I know this is an issue that's been ongoing for quite some time after speaking to several of the other neighbors in the area. We did, if you again drive through here, you know that we have put up several drive like your kids live here signs. That kind of also has now moved into the Ballantrae community. They also have been very concerned for their neighborhood as well. But I think, what we notice, and again, gathering some information from neighbors who've lived here for 30 years, is that this neighborhood has developed so much in the last 10 to 15 years with, for example, where Cumberland Hills and Jefferson Drive intersect, that used to be a dead end right there. Well, now that Bonita is there and it crosses over Cumberland, everyone is using Jefferson Drive to get back into those neighborhoods like Ballantrae and our neighborhood. And then off of Cumberland Hills, where Stark Knob and that little white church is, supposedly that used to be open right there before that new neighborhood went in, I guess, within the last 5 years or so. So that little cut through used to divert traffic. People would kind of cut back through there. Now that's closed off. And so really Jefferson Drive has become this main like drag strip almost of traffic coming and going. I think yesterday one of the neighbors, because I had, let anybody know who wanted me to share anything they had concerns about, one of them clocked, I on their little home camera, like 686 cars going by within a 6-hour period. And that was not even on a school day. So, I would really love to see the speed limit reduced if we can find a way to get around that manual, that federal guideline, which that was the last time that manual, that when I researched it, was updated was in 2009. So 11 years ago, a lot has changed in this neighborhood. And then the
long time.
other request, would be to get a 3-way stop sign put in at the corner of Monitor and Jefferson to at least create some kind of, slowdown where people couldn't just zoom through. And it's gotten a lot worse since they just repaved that road in the last 6 months or so. It's just gotten even worse. It just has really encouraged people to just keep flying down that road. And then the final thing, just to note, there is also inconsistency with the speed limits, through here, because on Stark Knob, the speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and that's just one street, over from us. So it doesn't make sense that we wouldn't be the same speed limit as a road like that. And we're the same speed as Cumberland Hills, which is a main street, with double yellow lines. It doesn't seem right for our street to be having traffic going that fast. So, anything that we can do, and I'm happy to help. I didn't have a chance to scrub through the entire manual personally. And Sarah has been great in forwarding, the information to me, and I really appreciate that. But I will do my part too, to try and find any way we can get around those federal regulations, anything we can do on a local level. We would really appreciate it. And there are several neighbors who are concerned about this. We got an article in the paper a couple months ago with a bunch of us, families and kids, all gathered around, just, begging for help. So thank you again for listening, and appreciate anything you guys can do.
All right. Thank you. And I appreciate you again coming this evening to speak to us. Sorry under these circumstances, but sometimes that's a lot of the ways that a lot of people meet their aldermen is through problems that they need resolved. And as always, all our aldermen are there to help. And so let's go ahead with Marshall. Do you, anything to add on to this?
No, I'm going to let Sarah and I spoke about this over the past couple of days, and I'm going to let her kind of give you a brief summary of kind of what she's done and explain why she came to this decision that she did.
All right, thank you, Marshall. Sarah, Ms. Locke.
Hi. Good evening. So, yes, the data was collected back in April initially, and shortly after that, like Dr. Dixon stated, there was an article written about it, and I provided some information at that time. Initially, the data really didn't change too much because I recollected it in September, and it's pretty close to the same. So as she stated, the existing speed limit is marked at 30 miles per hour. And from the data, we found the 85th percentile both times to be 36 miles per hour. And what she's talking about in the federal guidelines, she's talking about the MUTCD, the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And they kind of have standards and guidance that's been federally adopted based on traffic studies, just tons of studies over the years where they compile this data and devise these standards. And based on that, the limits are intended to be set within 5 miles per hour, either above or below that 85th percentile speed. And there is a 6 mile per hour differential here. So, I mean, based on that, if that's all we were looking at, the speed limit really should be 35, but that's not what we want, of course. And so, excuse me. And looking at the volumes, as she stated, the volumes are fairly high for a residential roadway at 1,600 vehicles per day, which puts it around a sub-collector, and it does function like that. As she stated, so many roadways kind of feed traffic onto Jefferson Drive. So there is quite a bit of traffic, and there are some considerations with that as well. there's a balance we have to strike where we move those vehicles through, because that is their path of travel. But we also need to be cognizant of how that affects the speeds and for the residents. So all of that to say, the speed limit I think is appropriate at 30 miles per hour. We would not want to set it at 35, but because of the regulations in the MUTCD, it's not appropriate to set it at 25 miles per hour, and not just because of the regulations. Like I said, that guidance is based on experience and studies, and not just these are, I mean, this is based on human behavior, which hasn't really changed in years. So what they find is, regardless of what you sign a roadway, the reality is people are going to drive however comfortable they feel driving. So if they feel comfortable driving 50 miles per hour, they will drive 50 miles per hour. And that's why the speed limits, when you are trying to check to see if it's appropriate speed limit, is based on that 85th percentile, which indicates that 85% of the drivers are comfortable driving at that speed. And so that's kind of how they've settled on that. And so really, in order to address the 36 miles per hour, 85th percentile, you change the feeling of the roadway. Now, Jefferson Drive is, it's a primary access route for emergency vehicles, so that we cannot do anything that is going to slow that down. So we will not typically consider speed tables, or we don't do speed bumps on residential roads or any of the others, except for Parks, I guess, has some. But what I've recommended is pavement markings, lane line pavement markings, to have them striped at 10 feet wide for the 2 lanes. And that changes a driver's perception. It's one of the most economical ways to do that. But instead of them seeing, I think, how wide did I say that was? They have 26 feet of existing pavement width. And so instead of a driver, if there's only 1 or 2 on the roadway, seeing that they have 26 feet of blacktop to drive on, then they will have a designated lane that's only 10 feet wide. And that, according to AASHTO, is appropriate for speed limits of 30 miles per hour. And so it will holistically encourage drivers to slow down, because it just naturally changes their perception of the roadway. And then as far as the stop sign, unfortunately, it's not warranted. And that's not just something with sorry. Stop signs are not recommended to be installed unless the traffic volumes warrant the stop sign. And the reasoning is, if you don't have enough vehicles coming up to every approach for a multi-way stop, people will ignore it. They'll roll through it or not even slow down at all once they realize, you know, for people who use this roadway regularly, when they approach that and they realize there's never any traffic at the other stop sign, studies have shown that they will be ignored. That actually poses more of a risk for pedestrians who might be using the roadway, or other drivers, because of the disregard for the stop sign. And so the volumes that are required on the main line are 300 vehicles per hour for eight hours a day, and 200 vehicles per hour on the minor approach for the same 8 hours per day. Okay. And we only collected data on Jefferson, which would be the main line between that and Monitor. And the volumes, the max volume was 183 vehicles hour. And that was only a couple hours, or I'm sorry, how many I say it was. There were only a few hours where it had greater than 100 vehicles per hour. So unfortunately, it wouldn't be a good option. And the reality is, at first, people would, because it's new, they would stop at first. But people have a tendency, just human behavior, outside of that stop sign. If there are not adequate volumes, they will make up for their time lost, and they actually drive faster outside of the immediate area of stop signs. So I really think the pavement markings would, to bring down the 85th percentile and to slow down those high-end speeders. I think pavement markings would be a really good option to consider. And then there is enough width to either leave a little shoulder on each side, or you could do like a 4-foot bike lane on one side as well. Could be a nice option.
Does the 85th percentile, does that represent 85% of the drivers going that speed? Is that what that?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, committee. Is that all, Sarah, for right now, or?
Yes, sir. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, committee, what, any suggestions at this point?
I have a couple of questions for Sarah, please. And Marshall, can you take off the agenda so we can see more people on the call?
Yes.
Sarah, my question, and I'm sure that you've looked into this, are there adequate speed limit signs on Jefferson Street?
There are, yes. It's
What-
not a very long stretch, and there's one at each entrance from Cumberland Hills and from Natchez.
Okay, what about the speaker, Miss Dixon mentioned that there were a lot of children playing. Do children playing signs help to slow down drivers if there are signs that said children at play?
No, and actually those are discouraged in practice due to the idea that really roadways are for cars. And so we don't actually put up signs to encourage children to play in the road. So as a general practice through traffic engineering, they do not recommend installing those signs anymore.
Okay, and Ms. Dixon talked about the possibility, I think, of a three-way stop sign. And you mentioned that the traffic volumes don't
Yes,
meet
sir.
the criteria for a three-way stop sign there. Would it be
Yes, sir.
possible? Would it be possible to put some strips, not the speed tables, but just some strips there that when people would hit rumble strips, I believe that they're called.
Yes,
Would
sir.
it help to put some rumble strips near that intersection so that when people near that intersection, they would at least have a reminder that, you know, of a physical reminder?
You could do that. Typically the rumble strips are made to bring attention to an area or a particular sign, like a warning sign. That's why we installed them in advance of the crosswalk near the school last year, the year before. There have not been any accidents at that intersection. I checked the crash data. There's only been one crash in the last 3 years along Jefferson. And it was a vehicle that was sideswiped. It was a parked vehicle. There was no one in it. And the crash report indicated that it was actually caused by the driver having a possible medical event. So I don't know that it would make a difference to install the rumble strips there, I guess is my point, because there's not really anything to bring attention to as far as we don't have any signage there. Or, I mean, you could, but I don't know that it would be as much of a benefit as the lane line pavement markings.
Okay, that's all, Chairman Skidmore. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman
Chairman.
Campbell.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I sort of like the lane markings and also the bike lane, 4-foot wide bike lane on one side, because we've been putting sharrows and bike lanes all over the town, and it would help us increase the number of bike lanes through that stretch, and would also narrow the road enough to where people would understand they may need to pay attention to the lane width, because I've heard in previous meetings about the narrowing the road would cause people to slow down just to pay attention to what they're doing, driving down a narrow lane. So I'd just like to make a motion that, for starters, we move with restriping that road and making also a 4-foot wide bike lane on one side or the other, like is recommended. And that out there is a recommendation at this time. And I'd also like to say, could we use a better quality, the best quality of reflective paint we can find? Because sometimes we mark a street, it lasts about a year, and after that, it's faded, it's gone.
Yes, it does
We're not
that
gonna
quite often.
If we're not going to mark roads every other year, then we need to put a better quality of marking paint on the ground, in my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And I will, if you'll hold that
Yes, sir.
that motion for just a second.
I
I
will.
wanted to ask Dr. Dixon, does that seem like something that you would be open, or do you think the people over there would be open to if we were to do this?
I'm definitely feel that we're heading in the right direction. Yes.
Okay. Alderman Bolt, did you have any comment, or Alderman Clary on this issue at all?
I guess I did. And I missed the first part, Alderman Skidmore, so I apologize for that.
Oh, that's
but,
okay.
And it may be redundant, but I've had quite a number of conversations with people on Jefferson Drive. In fact, one recently. And Lieutenant Daniels has been responsive in setting up radar over there. And then most recently, I talked to him last week, and he talked about putting up that electronic radar sign. And so it's there right now as kind of a reminder. So I'm hoping that people will understand that. And I miss Dr. Dixon's comments, but I'm sure they go along the lines of people cutting through there, including myself, because anytime I go to that part of town, I'm going to go through and cut through Jefferson Drive, and people go pretty quickly up that road, but they go especially quickly coming down that road. So it is an issue, and it's been an issue there for quite some time. So thank you.
Thank you. Points well taken. And Mayor, did you have anything on this, sir?
I do. I think the motion is heading in the right direction. I have a question for Sarah real quick. Sarah, there's no way that these two cancel each other out or anything like that. Is there a bike lane and the striping that doesn't cancel each other out by some way, does it?
No, actually, I think having the bike lane would further slow people down, just because it would bring attention to the possibility of a pedestrian presence.
Okay.
I think it would actually work to improve the situation.
Okay. Does it make sense, or do we have the possibility of where the bike lane starts to put some of those some of those indentions in the pavement?
We could. I would recommend the raised thermoplastic. They're just not as loud.
Okay.
And maybe that's another question. Ask the residents as well how they feel about the strips. The noise can be an issue, but
I mean, if somebody comes down there at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's going to wake somebody up.
It could.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And my other question for you is, I realize that the rumble strips that go across the road, typically we use those for a stop sign or to alert people of a sign coming up. Do we use them for curves? Because there's a curve down there that is part of the problem. As you're headed downhill, about 2/3 of the way, you have a curve. And I'm wondering if rumble strips would be appropriate to warn people about that curve coming up.
I like that.
I would have to look at that. I didn't evaluate the curve specifically for that. The radius, I'm not sure would meet the criteria for like a curve warning sign, which would kind of be appropriate location to add the rumble strips, but it's possible. I would have to look at it again.
Because almost at the apex of that curve is the intersection. So there's a little bit more, I guess I should say, risk than a regular curve. And I think that rumble strips, if they're appropriate, they'd be appropriate going downhill and uphill. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
All right, thank you all. Just one other thing before we entertain the motion. I was going to ask Chief Bush, does it have, how about our fire trucks or our apparatus or vehicles or whatever they're the appropriate thing to call them? I'm not really sure. They're fire trucks and emergency vehicles to me, Chief. Would that have any interference at all with them in case they need to go down Jefferson at all or anything?
I don't think it'll have a negative effect. We like the rumble strips very better than we do speed humps or anything like that. Correct me if I'm not wrong, Sarah, but I think we've been kind of working with you guys being consistent with whatever we do. We don't want to do one thing in one subdivision and then branch off and do speed humps. So we like the rumble strips. We like the tabletops. They're a little bit easier for our apparatus to go up and over than they are to try to do a speed hump or a speed bump. Rumble strips are fine. They're a little rough on the tires, but I mean, it's not going to cause an issue. We're certainly okay with those.
Well, thank you, Chief. And Alderman Hayes, I just saw you joined us. Good to see you as always.
Thank you,
Do you have
Chairman.
do you have anything to add or on this or anything?
Just one question. I'm just curious, approximately how much does it cost to, for example, do the 2 lanes and maybe a bike lane down that stretch of road?
It'd probably be around $2,000 to stripe that, and well, for the lane line markings, and then with the markings that you add in the bike lane, that 100% positive right now. But those are typically a little bit more expensive because they're preformed thermoplastic. So they may even be about $1,000 or so, just to guess. They're a little more expensive.
That's all I had, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you, Alderman Hayes. And Alderman Waters, anything?
No,
on this
thank you.
one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and Alderman Lamar, I say that every time. C.A. Lamar, do you have anything on this at all or anything?
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm not going to say Alderman Gilly, but Andy, how do you feel about it? Because I think you're over there in that area, or that used to be your ward.
I think Mr. Bolt's life will be a little easier if on the phone calls, if y'all can help him out on Jefferson.
All right, amen. I'll help you guys any way that I can. Okay,
Hey,
Pat, let's do
Chairman,
that motion again and let's run with it and see what happens.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to have 2 10-foot wide lanes of traffic and also a 4-foot bike lane that is marked to approve the traffic through that area.
Second.
Okay, there's been a proper motion and a proper second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Is everybody ready to vote? All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye when the roll call. And Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Roberson.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Dr. Dixon, it looks like you got some movement on this for you. Congratulations.
Thank
Hey,
you so much. I appreciate all your help.
Chairman Skidmore,
Yes.
can I ask one question, please?
Yes, sir. By all means.
Certainly, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. You said about $2,000 to do the striping on Jefferson,
Yes, sir.
and that's total for bike lanes. That's everything.
No, well, that's the lane line striping, but there's a thing that you put in the actual bike lane, and that's going to be additional. I have to find out what the pricing is for that.
Okay, so I'll have to check with finance, and of course, if C.A. Lamar was okay with that. But we have a Learn Not to Burn fund. That's a 501c3 that we have in the fire department. And it's basically people that donate money to us to give back to the community for like smoke detectors, things like that. I think if this is a true safety concern, I don't see why we couldn't, if Robert's okay with that, us spending $1,000 towards that. I'd be willing to do that if Robert okays that. I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention. I think anything the fire department can do towards safety in the community is huge for anybody.
That's great. That's great news, Scott, Chief Bush. I appreciate you doing that. That's, anything that you all can always do to help our city. That's wonderful with the things that's donated, because it's like what you're saying, we're giving back, or you're giving back into the community. So we appreciate that very, very much, that you're able to do that. What we'll do then is, if there's any costs that we have to incur, we'll just move this on to the finance and then get in, that's out of our jurisdiction. But that motion passed unanimously, and we'll get right on it when we're able to do it. And I'm sure, Dr. Dixon, you'll be notified when we're out there getting ready to do it. So if you just alert your neighbors and let them know, and Alderman Bolt, if you would alert your neighbors as well over there, let them know what's happened to the committee. We would appreciate you doing that.
So we are not, So we are not moving forward with the rumble strips right now. We are just doing the lanes. Is that correct?
Right, right. The rumble strips, to me, I think and I think probably I can't speak for the committee, but I pretty much think I can. That is going to be a position that would be our last resort. You know, we've got like a plan A and a plan B. We'll see what this does, and then if it's not effective, then we'll go. I would imagine come back with the rumble strips, and that would be our sort of our final thing that we could have an option to do.
Okay. And could we get at some point, Sarah, maybe a price on the rumble strips in case some of the neighbors decide to do some kind of fundraising for that? And also, when would be an appropriate time for us to reevaluate this, like 1 year from now, or, when could we kind of agree that we can?
I think 2 months after installation would be an appropriate timeline for everyone to adjust to the change and kind of get a clear picture of the free flow speeds.
Okay.
People are driving.
I tell you what we should do. I don't know what our calendar is, but maybe at the 1st of December, maybe the committee could revisit this, Sarah, and just see.
Okay.
Would that be enough time?
I'm gonna have to so we obviously use a consultant
Okay.
or a contractor to
I
install.
understand.
So I'm not sure what his installation timeline will be, but I'll put that down as a date to aim for.
Okay.
And see if we can get that done.
Yeah. So we'll be the Public Works Committee. I don't know what I was thinking. The Public Works Committee will revisit this at the 1st of December, and then we'll figure out if that's not enough time, Sarah. Then we'll just do another month by month to see when it's ready to be looked at.
Okay.
So about every
everybody.
couple of months, Doctor, about every 2 months.
Thank you so much. I know that the neighbors in Jefferson Drive are going to be really pleased to hear this news. So really appreciate y'all.
Okay. We're glad to help.
All right.
All
Have
right.
a good rest of your evening.
Okay. Thank you. And you do the same.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Whew.
Well, that was interesting. I was wondering whether we would have to go to the board. I meant to ask that, but I don't think we have to. That can be, I think that the committee can kind of do that.
Yes,
I hope everybody agrees.
I do.
Okay, good. Appreciate that, brother. Okay, listen, now we're going to go to the world, I guess it's the world famous neighborhood traffic calming program. And I believe that's going to be Sarah's baby right there.
Okay, well, sure. It is. So I guess some of the members of the committee have looked at this probably a couple of times before. This is the first time that I've been present to discuss it. So yeah, this was something that we decided would be really good to develop. A lot of the communities around us have a neighborhood traffic calming program. Ours was based off of Franklin's. They had a really good comprehensive one. And so traffic and parking and I went it pretty much line by line and made some revisions and removed some of the traffic calming measures just because of the emergency vehicle component. And then we've had some questions and comments, and so those changes have been addressed as well. So now we have, do you have the full traffic calming program in agenda? Do you have the actual document, Marshall? Do you know?
Can you see it on your screen, the draft?
Oh,
yes.
There it is. Thank you. And the benefit of this for the city is kind of as Chief Bush stated, this will make it so every neighborhood gets treated exactly the same if they have a request for traffic calming. They would all have to go through the exact same process. The other benefit of this is they would have to go through a petition section where they would contact us and request traffic calming, and we provide all the addresses that would be affected by this request. And it puts it back on the citizen to go and get a petition.
Right.
And the benefit of this for the city is it ensures all the neighbors are on board, because we have had issues in the past where we've made some changes, striping and things like that. And a lot of the neighbors were really upset about it and didn't like the way it looked and thought it changed the feel of their residential roadway.
Okay.
So this, well, okay, yeah, so they make the request, they do their petition, and then we collect the traffic data and compare that to some criteria and come up with recommendations.
Okay.
And so, does anyone have any questions? Has everyone kind of looked through it? Or
Yeah, the committee will probably, I can't speak for them, but they'll look through that. But this is a long time coming. I believe Alderman Roberson and Alderman Campbell, I think Roberson made the motion, if I recall correctly, and I think Campbell seconded. Of course, it was approved unanimously, but it's something that our whole city has been there. The neighborhoods have been looking at very strongly for many years. And so when the committee came up with this concept, I don't know how the aldermen feel about it of the committee, but this has been something that I think this is going to be a good solution to a lot of it, because some of the people, in Hendersonville don't think we're doing anything in terms of the committee structure of what we're doing. And here's a prime example of something that we've heard them and we've been working on it and we've come up with a very good solution on it. So I don't know how the other members of the committee feel about it, but I think it's something that, and I appreciate you bringing that with us tonight, and we'll be talking about it in future months, if not like within the first of the year, first of the month. This is something really good. Now, let me ask Marshall something. This is for this committee. Is there any process that we have to go through? We'll announce this obviously to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, but is there anything that the other aldermen need to know about this at all?
One thing, Chairman, I think we're just trying to allow staff to have some type of internal policy to follow. And I'm not sure I really don't know the steps, procedurally, to get that in place, but we just wanted to at least make you aware of it, and obviously get your blessing. And if you feel it's needed, and obviously Dave can chime in on this too, if it's needed to go on to BOMA,
Okay.
Happy with that. But if you're comfortable with the stopping here and just allow staff to utilize this document, we'd be fine with that too.
Okay. Well, I'm happy with you guys utilize it. How about the rest of the committee? Do y'all feel the same, or does anybody?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. I have no problem with them utilizing this document. We need some guidance when it comes to these issues. I've been on the board now 6 years, and this has come up several times. And over in Indian Ridge, they had a person that was doing 100 miles an hour in the morning, like 5:30. They had one on Harbor, your neighborhood, a young man doing like 100 miles an hour down through there. The police just set up radar one day and called both of those individuals. It's just like I'm looking at the paperwork on this one. In the morning they were doing 56, and in the evening they were doing 74. So I'm sure the police will be out there in that neighborhood around those time frames, just waiting for that person to roll down the street. So at least I hope they will. So yes, I think we need to utilize this document to help with letting our citizens know that we are actively working for traffic calming measures throughout neighborhoods that are uniform across the board.
Thank you.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
Alderman Roberson?
Yeah, thank you. I would suggest maybe that we put this on the BOMA agenda so that Sarah could kind of outline this and inform all of the other aldermen so that as they're discussing these issues with their constituents, that they would be aware that this is the 8-step process involved. So it might be a good idea, to have Sarah give a report on this, just that this is a new process so that everybody's well informed on it.
Well, okay, I agree. What we'll do, obviously, I will give Sarah enough time to prepare herself for it. And how about we just put it on the next agenda of the board?
Good.
That's good.
And we'll have her come and give us an idea about, give us this report to the full board. Well, that sounds great.
Okay.
Well, you're aces there, Sarah. Tonight, you're batting 1,000. That's awful good coming out of Public Works.
Pretty good.
May I ask a question for Sarah before she leaves, if she's getting ready to leave?
She's going to stay on for the Hidden Point pavement evaluation. We've got one more
Yeah,
item.
we've got one more after this one. That she's got one more, and then she's going to head for the hills after that.
Okay, well, I have a question for her. Sarah, what is required to get a traffic study along a road? I've had a lot of complaints on Stop 30 of the road being very narrow, some accidents happening, speeding, and what's necessary to get a traffic study for Stop 30 road?
Which stretch of Stop 30 are you referencing?
It's
it
from
Drake's
Drake's Creek to New Shackle.
Okay. So I had been either CC'd or had some emails forwarded to me about that and about the accidents. And so I pulled the crash data for that and discovered there were nearly 40 accidents along that stretch within the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So we've actually put that one out to our on-call traffic engineer for him to do a full evaluation of that roadway and give us his formalized recommendation.
Okay, you know how long that will take?
I believe we should probably be hearing something within the next month. I'll double
so-
check with him on that tomorrow.
So Marshall, could we put that on the next Public Works agenda meeting?
We will.
Receive that report. All right. Thank you, Chairman Skidmore.
Yes, sir. Alderman Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking of traffic issues, Saunders Ferry Road from Main Street all the way down to Saunders Ferry Park is extremely dangerous, showing lack of shoulders and the old guardrails that we've just had a wreck. A car went through a guardrail and had to have it replaced. I was just curious if we could get an estimate for the entire repaving of Saunders Ferry and also adding in shoulders along that roadway and replacing 40-year-old rust out guardrails that are down through there. I don't know if that would go with traffic calming or if that needs to be, because there's been several wrecks down Saunders Ferry as well. And it's a dangerous road, be it that we have all the boats, traffic that are people are hauling the boats down that road to and from the lake and the marinas and those commercial restaurants through there. So I was just curious, is this the place to discuss that, or maybe the next Public Works meeting or our next bring to Bowman? But I would like to have some information on that road as well for paving and also updating guardrails and shoulders for safety purposes down Saunders Ferry Road. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Alderman Campbell, to piggyback on that, maybe it would be good, Mr. Chairman, to ask the staff to come up with the 10 most dangerous roads in Hendersonville based on crash activity. We've got a handle on, hey, this road's had 40 accidents. So kind of an accident report road for the top 10 in the city. Marshall, would that be possible to do?
That would be. Yeah, we could pull get police and pull reports from those crashes. That shouldn't be a problem.
And also talking about Saunders Ferry, there's lack of there's no sidewalk, there's no shoulder, especially when you go from around the Hickory Heights Drive area coming north toward Imperial. People walk in that ditch. Car goes off the side of the road there. Someone is dead. There's no let's talk about it. I mean, they've just gotten brush between a guardrail and a car. And it's at a probably a 45-degree angle, the ditch they're walking in. So it really needs to be updated and corrected due to the amount of traffic that Saunders Ferry Road is now handling, with Imperial being a cut-through road right there, and between Walton Ferry and Saunders Ferry. And then you've got Hickory Heights and Luna Lane and Walco that have now turned into all cut-through roads into the peninsula out here, and that serves wards 1 and 2. But anyways, I just think that the Saunders Ferry Road is a road that has a lot of traffic that really needs some serious look at it. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that.
Okay. I concur with you, Alderman Campbell. I think that's something we can discuss. We'll either at our next meeting or just whenever you're choosing.
Yes, sir.
We can put it on the agenda to discuss and to see what our responsibilities are, what we should do. But I do concur with you.
All right. So thank
all right. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go on to Hidden Point pavement evaluation.
Yeah, yes, Chairman. I believe last committee meeting we had some discussion about the paving in Hidden Point. So I got with staff, and what you have before you is the evaluation done by staff for the streets in Hidden Point. I could try to make an attempt to explain this, but I'm going to let Sarah go through this and explain kind of what they found out after further investigation.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Are you ready?
Yes, sir, I'm ready.
All right, let's roll.
So this last week, Tommy and I actually rode out with a consultant who has helped us in the past with roadways and recommendations for different treatments. And he reviewed both sides with us, and the pavement condition in the east side versus the west side of Hidden Point, they're very different. On the east side of Hidden Point, the pavement it feels very rough when you're driving. It's weathered, but structurally it's in very good condition, which is excellent. And so that particular section could have a couple of options. So of course, mill and overlay, which would be one of the most expensive options, but it's new pave. Another option would be to crack seal the existing cracks, which there were not many observable cracks in comparison to what we'll discuss on the west side. And then we could fog seal it. Now that just like we did with Indian Lake about 2 years ago, we crack sealed and we fog sealed that stretch of roadway. And it just makes it black for a while, and it does decrease that a little bit as well. But maybe a better option and maybe more satisfactory to the residents would be to crack seal the existing cracks and then to do a thin lift asphalt overlay. So it would look exactly like new pavement, but not be quite as costly as the mill and pave, especially considering existing is structurally in very good shape. The west side, however, has extensive cracking, pretty much throughout that entire area. And what the reason that may be is there might be adequate depth of asphalt. They may have put down the subgrade stone and then just overlaid it. They may not have put a binder, which that would come through as that cracking because of all of the stress without adequate structure to support all of it. And so the consultant, or his recommendation was actually to perform a scrub seal. And what that is, it has a little bit of an aggregate in it, like a really fine aggregate, and it uses a brush to apply it. And it literally scrubs it down in between those cracks. And it just seals everything that's existing in. And so then you build on top of that. And his recommendation was to do that scrub seal and then apply a thin lift overlay on that side as well, and to build on top of it. The concern is if we mill that, there may be well, if not enough asphalt, it may have to be rebuilt. But then also, in addition to that, there may be bigger issues underneath the subgrade that once you mill it up and you've opened it up, you have to do a full depth reclamation, which is extremely expensive. And so I think it was a good recommendation to do a scrub seal, lock in everything that's there, and build a new surface on top of it for the west side. Now his recommendation was due to the nature of the cracking that's there, that it really should be dealt with before winter. He felt like if it goes through another winter, a lot of those, because the nature of the cracks is the sections, it's just cracked out in small sections. So those are all going to start popping out fairly soon through winter, he felt.
Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's very enlightening, actually. Does any of the committee members have any discussion on that?
Yes, I do. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead, Eddie. You're fine.
Well, I would estimate, Sarah, that if we turn this consultant loose on other roads in other wards, that this consultant would probably come up with the same recommendation. So I'm really not interested in the recommendation when you just kind of do a snapshot analysis. I would prefer a comparative analysis. And the traffic and the paving study that was done, I think Pat said 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3.
Gave us some general parameters that we can follow so that we get the worst ones first. So my question is in a comparative analysis of other roads, is this one the worst in the city that we need to spend the limited money that we've got this year for paving? Or are there other greater needs that supersede, as bad as this one is, that supersede this particular project?
An excellent question. So there's a split answer on that. So the east side of Hidden Point, that is absolutely nowhere near the worst roads in the city. And to be honest, it wait to be treated. I think a crack seal with a fog seal would carry that road for quite a few years before we even had to address it again, just because of the low volumes. Now, I want to say that I do think it's very responsible to look at alternative treatments on an annual basis and combined with paving. And we haven't done any of the alternative treatments this year. And I think that road would qualify for that. And by alternative, I mean the crack and fog seals. The west side of Hidden Point is a little bit more complicated to answer that question directly, because the nature of the distresses that are shown now, and they may not have been that bad 3 years ago. I don't know. Can't speak to that exactly, but if we wait through this winter and those sections begin to pop up, what would cost us a certain dollar amount now may cost us double or triple in the spring if that way has to be fully reclaimed. Now that's worst case, but it is a possibility. Now, does it have to have a scrub seal and an overlay right now? No, I think that we could look at scrub sealing that just to lock down what's there and protect it through the winter with the water and everything. And I think that would be adequate a scrub seal would be good for a couple to 5 years even, just depending on how it holds up. It's something we could monitor. But for the west side, I do think it's appropriate to address it at some level now. Not that it has to be overlaid now, but I think it would be a good idea to lock down what's existing to protect what we have.
What did Hidden Point evaluate? What was their score in the paving study?
That is, let me see what I put in here. The individual segments scored between 39.37 and 91.4. The higher end is on the that eastern side where it's just weathered but not badly distressed. The averages for the western side came in at 48 was the weighted average for that PCI.
One last comment, then I'll turn the floor over. I know that Alderman Campbell has talked about Walton Ferry. I've talked about Glen Oaks. So really, Marshall, and this is directed toward our new Director of Public Works. So really, we need the staff. I mean, you don't want a bunch of politicians, each fighting for their ward, saying we need this or we need that. We really need the staff to come back and say, hey, of all of the roads that we've looked at, the paving study, this is what we're recommending to do. And we really need the staff to give us that recommendation. Thank you, Chairman Skidmore.
All right, thank you. Alderman Campbell.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. That's what the PCI paving study was all about, was to take politics out of paving so that our engineers, I went over every road in Hendersonville. They come up with a formulation and they said, here you go. And it's for 5 years. And we're 3 years into that program. I think the first year we might have done it. The second and third year, our employees said, well, what's a good thing to look at and maybe use to draw some information from. But we're going to run out here and try to make, we're going to work in, say, over here in my neighborhood. We're going to do Rebecca Drive, Luna Lane, Lakeside Park. Let's run over here to Candlewood, maybe come over to Woody Side, hit about 5 or 6 streets right here in my neighborhood within a quarter mile to a half mile stretch right here, or maybe in Mark's area, you hit Harbor and Cumberland Shores and some of those other Neptune over there in that area, some of those streets.
Yeah, like I've been accused of not doing.
Well, I'm just saying, I was on the board 2 years and I was trying to get your roads paved. I said, I drove through there and I said, man, come on. I know you don't want to do it, Mr. Chairman, but your neighbors over there, I got friends that live over there, Eddie Davidson, Buster Pinnock, and a few others. They deserve to have, they've lived there 50 years. They deserve to have their road paved too. So that's why I brought that up. But the PCI was designed to take politics out of it. Unfortunately, that lasted about a year. And then we decided to go to, we think we can get a bigger bang for our buck if we do this, that, and the other, and slide it around and still get to the affected roads that are at the top of the list, the 10 worst streets in Hendersonville, which we probably still have a few of those roads that are the worst on that list 3 years into it. So I personally would like to see us go ahead and do the west side of Hidden Point and get that moving along because, like I said, it needs to be addressed. And
all right, thank you.
So there you go. Mr.
On
Chairman.
my list of people, let's see, Hidden Lake, is that Ward 4?
Yes.
Okay, is Alderman Bolt still with us, or is he gone?
No, I'm here.
Okay, sir, do you have any comments on this? Because I know that's your district.
I have a few. I think I've spoken about using the survey in the past. It just not actually happened. So I know Marshall would like to do that, and I think I've been one of the loudest about keeping politics out of a lot of the things that we do on an operation standpoint. Because at the end of the day, the city's been run by politicians for 30 years, and it's part of the problem that we're running into now. That being the case, from time to time, these things need to be looked at. And that's why the consultant came in there at Hidden Point. And it's probably in a different situation than it was 3 years ago when it was originally part of that survey. So, and we have citizens that have come forward with a petition. I've met with some of them. One of the people over there is highly regarded, an high-level employee at the city of Hendersonville, and is very familiar with roads and whatnot, and so has a pretty good handle on what that looks like. So I would also agree. I've been over there and looked at the roads. I'm absolutely no expert, but others are. So I'd like to see something done on that west side, and then on the other side, we can talk about if we've got to put a finger in the dike for the short term. I don't want to spend money on something that's going to last a couple of years and then have to go back and significantly do redo. So it's a waste of money, but Sarah would, and Marshall would know better than I would on something like that. But if we can do something on the west side that's more permanent and lasts a little bit longer, I don't want to have to go through another winter, as I discussed with Marshall today, and then find ourselves in a far worse situation and then have to spend significantly more money to address the problem. I appreciate that, Alderman Skidmore.
Sure. Yes, sir, by all means. Okay, so does anybody have any further discussion on this, or
I got my hand up. I got my hand up.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. I apologize there, Alderman Waters. Go ahead, bud. Sorry about that.
It's all right. You're a good man. You know, I think Alderman Cameron and I can go back with you several years ago when this PCI started, how hard he and I worked and with these companies that came in and did this survey. And I'm looking at it right now. I still got copies of it. I think we need to take politics out of our paving, and we paid a lot of money for this PCI, a lot of money. And as I look at it right now, some of the roads then, which is about Pat, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, that they did this survey.
3 years.
And I'm looking at the conditions of some of these roads. We got 2 in Glen Oaks. It's listed as a 33, so it'd be very poor according to this chart. That's 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Pat. And then I look at Alexander, 40. That's poor. And I appreciate Alderman Bolt and his request for hidden place over there. But we've got to stick to what we started out with several years ago. We don't need to just throw it away and just start doing the streets that's real bad. They're all bad. And a lot of our streets are bad. But I encourage the committee to let's review this survey and let's go by it and stick to it. We all want good paving. We all get phone calls every day about their potholes and this stuff. And we're going to take care of it eventually. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir, Alderman Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only problem we have with, we followed the PCI for 1 year, then we decided to shelve it for a moment for 2 years, the last 2 years actually, and sort of use it as yeah, we got that there, but we're not really going to follow it to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
And everybody started realizing, well, if I get my neighborhood to give me a petition or get a group of people to come up with and tell us about how bad their road is, all of a sudden it takes top priority no matter where it was at on the PCI list. And a good example of that would be Drake Creek Road and Anderson Road, because at the time, that one goes back 3 years ago. It was brought to our attention about it being a dangerous road with all the construction traffic and having some sponging in the paving and asphalt. I'm just curious, how much money did we spend on Drake's Creek? I can remember it was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for Drake's Creek Road and Anderson Road to be paved at that time. And we'd already spent a lot of money on $1.2 million on the Wessington Place, rebuilding that road in its entirety, 1.2 miles or something like that, or a little over a mile. And we had 88 driveway connections on that one that are all concrete now. And we also rebuilt Volunteer Drive back then, which cost almost $1 million. And so I realized we have the PCI, and I wish we would have stuff with that, but we did not. We set it on a shelf for 2 years. And the first year that we did it, we actually went around it and did Drake's Creek Road and we did Anderson Road. Having said that, I would like for Marshall to dig out those numbers on Anderson Road and Drake's Creek and tell us exactly how much did we spend on those two roads alone. And I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about asphalt, fixing the sponging of the road, reestablishing the shoulders, making that road drivable, striping it, total dollars spent. Because that's exactly what's happened here is we've jumped around. We've gotten certain wards taken care of, and other wards are sort of taking a back seat. And that's why I'm trying to push Saunders Ferry Road to the front of the list. And I'm sure that's why some of this hidden point has moved up. And anyways, I just want to point that out that we did use the PCI for 1 year, then it was sort of shelved for 2, and now we're wanting to bring it back out. And I agree. It actually was a 5-year program design. We spent $250,000 on it. It's a 5-year program. We should be doing fog sealing every year is what it was calling for, that we go out and try to extend the life of roads. And then fog sealing would give us approximately 5 to 10 years additional life on some roads that are less traveled than others. And the paving program would kick in, and hopefully we'd catch up with spending additional funds for those roads. So anyways, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And your point is well taken, honestly. I know it was very tiresome.
Mr. Chairman, can I speak?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Let me refer back to Alderman Campbell's Western Place. I want you to look at that survey, Alderman Campbell. That was undertaken way before we did the PCI. That was in the making way before then.
Oh, I agree. But PCI
had nothing to do with Western Place, and it took a long time. So
I agree.
I don't want us to get mixed up in.
I was all for it.
Okay.
100% for doing it. I'm all for all the culverts to be replaced, drains, everything out through there.
Yeah.
Curbs, every bit of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, let me say something about Drakes Creek and Anderson. It's my understanding that the monies to pave those roads were from the developments, from fees that new homes were built. So I think that's important to understand. That money didn't come from supplemental paving budget, but that came from a fund that those new developments were paying for because of the extra traffic. I'm not opposed to doing. All I want Sarah and all I want Marshall to do is just to say, this is one of the roads that we need to do now, so that, I'm clear that they've done a good comparative analysis. They've looked at the survey. They've also looked at all the roads, and they believe that this is the top priority in the city right now.
All right. Thank you, Alderman Roberson. Alderman Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But when you start looking at the amount of funds, I realize it's the new development that has helped spur the paving and corrections of those roads in Drakes Creek and Anderson Road. You can't do that over a Hidden Point. You can't do that down Saunders Ferry. You can't do that down Walton Ferry. We're built out over here pretty much. We've got a few houses going here and there, but very few. And the new growth comes from Durham's Farms in that area over there. And sure, we have dollars, and it does wind back up into supplemental paving, because we took money out of supplemental paving to do Indian Lake. We turned right around and said we'll take the 288, put it back in supplemental paving to cover other things. And then people started saying, well, I'm going to hedge my fund. I'm going to hedge for those funds to be used over here. So I don't know. There's not a perfect answer to this. If we would have stuck with PCI out of the gate and tried it for 5 years, we might have had a better handle on it and actually had an idea. Said, yeah, this works pretty good, because it was designed to be reevaluated in 5 years and get us another guideline to go by. But basically, that's been thrown out the window, and this is where we're at right now. So, anyways, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Marshall. Where do we go from here? What do we need to do?
Well, there are a couple of things I wanted to kind of point out. I realize this is a sensitive topic. Paving, it affects every person in the city. I tell staff we spend a lot of time evaluating what streets to pave. We utilize the pavement study to come up with a good answer to those questions, and we have no problem making those decisions. I feel very comfortable about selecting the roads that we pave, and we've identified the roads that we're going to pave this fall. We have identified the roads we're going to pave in the spring. And one thing I wanted to point out is, it was mentioned about the treatment, our treatment program as far as sealing. We had planned to do that last fiscal year, but we had to turn back almost $1 million back to the general fund because of COVID. And right. So there was money there that we could not, that we'd planned to spend, but we could not spend. And so, and again, just to go along with that, the payment study was predicated on a certain amount of funding every year. And I don't think we have met since I've been director, I don't think we have met that goal of having that funding every year for that program. Hopefully with that, that'll change in the future, but we're short on what we need to accomplish those goals set forth a few years ago. But despite that, though, I feel like we have some roads that we can pave this fall, this spring, that staff evaluated, looking at the PCI, looking at the pavement study, and making some good decisions.
Okay.
But anyway, but I just wanted to point that out.
All right. Thank Alderman Campbell.
Yes, real quick. The funding level you're talking about, I believe, was $2.8 to $3.5 million per year for 5 years, laid out over 5 years. And yes, you're correct. We have had a hard time getting to $2.8 to $3.5 million of funding. Yes, sir.
All righty. So where does the committee would like to go from here?
Alderman Bolt threw his hand up a moment ago. I don't know if
he did. I'm sorry. Alderman Bolt, I apologize. I didn't see your hand.
Sarah's got hers up. Do you have something to say, Sarah? You can go before me.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make one comment about the PCIs that we find in the pavement study. The way that they presented them to us as a final product was based on very short roadway segments, and then they laid out the treatments based on that, and that's not really a efficient way to approach that. So, and part of what I've done is I've gone back through that study, the Excel spreadsheets, and I've done weighted averages for sections that make sense or full roadway lengths, because the reality is it's not good practice to pave 100 feet and then skip the rest of the pavement because the PCI is 10 points higher or whatever. And I wanted to point that out because that's been part of the issue as well, why we've been reluctant to use the study as it was presented to us, because it really wasn't a good way to solve the problem. But I mean, there have been deviations, obviously, everyone knows that, but sure. I just wanted to point that out as a point.
I agree.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and look, and in retrospect, that's a very accurate statement to be made. Alderman Bolt, did you?
Yeah, I would just say that I find it a little ironic that when Alderman Brown and I want to actually have something pay, which is the first time I brought something up, all of a sudden we want to revert to a study that we really haven't been using. I think the staff has come forward and they've said that we need to do this. So I'm going to rely on them for their expertise. And this has come this far. Okay, it's come this far to get this far. For us to now say, well, no, we're going to revert to something else, I think is, isn't right. So I think it's time that we make a decision on this. We've taken it this far. Staff spent a lot of time on this. We've had Rogers Group out there, I think, also making an evaluation. So I like to see it move forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Boat. I appreciate that. Okay, so again, we've got, so let's see here. If you'll have to refresh my memory, what was the cost of this for Hidden Lake? Was this how much was it cost? Because I know it was mentioned before, but I do not recall how much.
In the last committee meeting, we had some questions asked about the cost of paving Hidden Point and Glen Oak. Hidden Point, the total cost was, and this is the most expensive option, which we're not going to do, but
right,
$340,000. Our plan will be much less than that. The Glen Oak cost was close. It was about $333,000 for the Glen Oak subdivision.
Okay.
But the options, the route we're taking, we don't have final numbers on that yet. We're still trying to get those costs finalized before we present it back to committee. Once we have those, we'll email them to the members.
Okay. Well, listen.
We have about 5 minutes left before I think we're going to have to adjourn. For the next.
Well, let's just, all right. Well, here's what we'll do. And Alderman Bolt will have to help us. If he disagrees with this, he'll need to let us know. But my position would be, let us get, but what we'll need to know from this committee is which plan that we need to take, get a cost on it. Because I know, but we need to act on it this year. I mean, it's got to be quick. So according to Sarah, that will, it's sort of like the law of diminishing returns. The longer we put this off, the worse it's going to be. So we don't want to do that. We want to get it exercised and done if this committee agrees to it, and get it done this year. So why don't we find out how? Oh, yes, sir, Marshall, go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt. I think staff has a plan ready, and we're ready to execute that plan if it's everyone on the committee is comfortable with that. That's what I want to do, and I think we're ready to move forward with it. And we're just
I appreciate that, and I know that and I know that's the white elephant in the room is the fact that I'm going to say this, but my job in public works is I don't give a damn who the alderman is. And that goes out to, whomever wants to, well, I shouldn't say I don't give a damn. I do care who the aldermen are. And my point is I would like to see this resolved for the constituency and the aldermen, because it just takes enough off their plate, and they've got, Lord knows, everybody's got a full plate. But I would like to see this resolved, but yet my point is I need to know how much money. So if we can find out, within a day or two, how much this is going to cost, I think, Marshall, you and I have discussed another, we were wanting to have a
special call meeting.
Yeah, special call meeting. And then we can put it on this agenda, right, and get it and put it on just that one specific ordinance or whatever it is, have the committee vote on it and be off with that.
Yeah, to give you a sense of scale, we budget wise, we have about $1 million that we had planned to spend this fall, and then about another 500,000 in the spring on paving, and then another 300,000 for our treatment program.
Right.
All in told, I mean, it's about 1.8 million, for this fiscal year, with $1 million coming from supplemental paving, the general fund, and 800,000 coming from State Street Aid.
Okay.
And again, I want to just remind everyone, we have the agreement that Rogers Group has so graciously allowed us to make payments on the work they do, through the fall, so we can make our final payment in the spring once we collect property tax.
Okay, thank you. Does that feel good with you, Alderman Bolt?
If I understand it correctly, yes, it does.
Okay. Well, I know sometimes
it.
we get off on our own little tangents here, but it's unfortunate that some of the things that I've been hearing, people, it's not that they don't understand paving. It's they don't understand the reality of what only money we have to deal with. And so I'm just going to leave that at that. But I want you to know, Alderman Bolt, that I want to get your situation in Hidden Lake taken care of.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Alderman Skidmore.
You're very, very welcome. And so here's what we'll do. If there's no objection, we'll get a price, and then we'll put it on the special call meeting of the Public Works Committee, and that'll be the first thing that we deal with, and then we'll deal with with our drainage committee, or what we've got to do in our drainage situation in Hendersonville, which is not bad. It's just we got to get it up to date.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound like a plan for the committee?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Roberson?
Yes, sir.
All right, there's no objection. There's no necessary for a vote. We'll just put it on the next agenda to deal with. And we'll, as always, as we do, we'll notify Alderman Bolt about when our committee is. And I'm going to get with Marshall tomorrow and figure out when our next special call meeting is. Okay, now, so we'll put that on there for that. So requires no objection. There's no vote. We have a resolution resolution authorizing a transfer of $14,000 from the Parks Department maintenance of the buildings line item to the assets of $7,000 and up line item.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, there's been a proper and a motion, second by motion. Any discussion on the issue? It's designated for the replacement of the HVAC unit of the football concession stand at Drake Street Park. All right, all in favor of this signify by saying aye when I call the roll. All opposed say no. Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Roberson.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. It passes unanimously. All right.
Mr. Chairman, can we group 7, 8, and 9 together and just have a consent agenda on those 3 items so that we can move
That
quickly?
motion.
Okay, there's been a motion that we group 7, 8, and 9 together. The resolution 2020-56, 2020-58, and 2020-57.
It'd be 6,
Okay, so there's been a motion and there's been a proper second. All right. What it is, and we have to read it. It's a resolution of an intent to use the park department budgeted funds for other items, declare the equipment that's owned by the city to be surplus and directing disposal of the same, and then authorizing utilizing the $14,000 from the Public Works Department asset $7,000 and upline for the purpose of replacing a fuel canopy. All right, there's been a proper motion and a seconded. Any further discussion on the issue on any of the resolutions at all? Any of them? Hearing none,
Chairman.
that's good.
Mr. Chairman, you skipped number 6, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I
think you
did.
might
I
wanna group that
apologize.
in with it.
Ordinance 2020-40, amending the budget 2020 by accepting the appropriating the sponsorship funds, the Memorial Dog Park. Does the motion and second agree with that 6? Number
Yes.
6? Okay.
Yes, I do.
All right. So any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye when I call the roll, or no. Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Roberson.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. 6, 7, 8, 9 passes unanimously. Woo, Jesus. All right, there you go, Alderman Gilly. You got a bunch of them through there, bro. All right, do we have what else do we have, or is it time to shut down?
Yeah, we may need to take the rest of the items on the agenda and place those on the special called committee.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do that. We're going to put the remaining items on our next special called meeting. I'm going to get with Marshall tomorrow, and I haven't officially, and we're going to find out, what's good for everybody. And we'll get back in touch with you. Marshall, again, I've already told you once, but congratulations again. You do exceptional work for under the work that you've got, and look forward to serving with you, hopefully at least 4 more years. So thank you very much. And I guess we'll just need a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and it adjourned at.
Congratulations, Marshall.
Thank you, Alderman
Yes.
Waters.
See you guys in about an hour.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys.